Before we go any further, I want you to pay close attention to what your intuition has been trying to tell you over the past several days. If life has felt unusually dense, if your thoughts have carried a strange weight, or if you've had the persistent feeling that something enormous is approaching, even though you cannot yet give it a name, do not dismiss that sensation. There is a reason your inner world has been responding before your logical mind could explain it. What unfolds today reaches far beyond the ordinary rhythm of a monthly lunar cycle. In my view, this stands among the most extraordinary astrological turning points we are likely to witness during this entire decade, and I say that only after looking carefully at every layer involved. Today, on July 29th, the full moon rises in Aquarius. Even by itself, that would already deserve our complete attention. Yet, this lunation refuses to stand alone. It arrives merged with the transformative force of Pluto, while directly facing an exceptionally rare conjunction between the Sun and Jupiter in Leo. As though that were not enough, this moment comes only 3 days after the lunar nodes. The very axis associated with destiny and collective evolution shifted into entirely new signs for the first time in 18 months. When I examined how all of these events interact, I realized this was not simply another astrological forecast. Every new piece revealed another hidden layer, and every layer suggested something far more profound than an emotional fluctuation or a temporary energetic wave. What became impossible to ignore was the unmistakable indication that 3 zodiac signs are approaching a permanent separation from an old version of their lives. This is not a brief transition. It is not a passing season. It is the kind of structural ending that permanently changes the foundation beneath your feet. If this week has left you waking each morning with the strange awareness that you are standing before an invisible doorway, sensing change without fully understanding its shape, that feeling is neither random nor imagined. There is a precise cosmic explanation for it. And before we explore who is most deeply affected, it is essential to understand why this full moon carries such unusual power. Rather than behaving like a normal culmination point, this lunation functions more like a release mechanism for enormous pressure that has been accumulating for an extended period. One of the most overlooked truths about today is that the full moon at 6 degrees Aquarius is not appearing in isolation. It reaches its maximum illumination at the exact climax of an exceptionally rare planetary structure known as the barboat basket, a geometric arrangement created when 4 of the slowest-moving outer planets occupy an extraordinarily precise relationship across the zodiac. At this moment, Pluto stands at 4 degrees Aquarius, Uranus occupies 4 degrees Gemini, Neptune rests at 4 degrees Aries, and Jupiter shines from 4 degrees Leo. Each planet is positioned within fire and air signs. Each sits within roughly a single degree of the others, and together they create an intricate network of trines, sextiles, and one powerful opposition between Jupiter and Pluto. The importance of this pattern cannot be overstated because configurations of this precision do not emerge by chance. The last time these outer planets organized themselves into such a constructive geometric design, the world that existed beforehand did not remain the same afterward. History moved forward on a different foundation. That perspective completely changes how we should understand the present moment. For a long time, many people have felt surrounded by dismantling, instability, uncertainty, and the unsettling impression that everything dependable was slowly falling apart. According to this alignment, the phase devoted primarily to breaking outdated structures apart is beginning to give way to something entirely different. The enormous force once occupied with destruction is becoming available for creation. The energy that cleared space is now searching for something worthy to build. This full moon serves as the catalyst that activates the entire process. Instead of leaving this immense collective transformation at the level of global cycles or generational astrology, it channels those forces directly into your individual experience. That explains why emotions have become so intense this week. You are not responding only to lunar energy. You are feeling the momentum of an entire era attempting to move through your life, asking you to become part of a reality that is still taking shape. When I finally recognized how these pieces connected, the realization stayed with me because it became impossible to see this period as ordinary. Then another piece of the puzzle locked into place, making everything even more significant. Only 3 days before this full moon, on July 26th, the lunar nodes changed signs. The North Node entered Aquarius while the South Node moved into Leo, marking a profound shift in the collective evolutionary path. The nodes describe where humanity is growing and what patterns must be released in order for that growth to happen. With this movement, the entire directional compass has turned. During the next 18 months, the message is remarkably clear. The South Node in Leo signals the gradual completion of a chapter centered on external recognition, applause, personal validation, and the desire to build identity around being admired or singled out as exceptional. Those experiences have played their role, yet continuing to rely on them now risks becoming the very obstacle preventing further growth. Meanwhile, the North Node in Aquarius points toward an entirely different future. It emphasizes collective wisdom, decentralized structures, shared purpose, and leadership grounded in integrity rather than performance. It encourages every one of us to stop waiting for permission to become the hero of the story, and instead invest our gifts into something that extends beyond personal importance. What gives this message extraordinary force is its timing. Because the nodal shift occurred only 3 days before today's full moon, the moon now reaches its highest point while joined with Pluto in Aquarius, directly alongside the North Node. Symbolically, it is as though the universe has taken this evolutionary instruction, placed it in bold letters, underlined every sentence, and illuminated it with unmistakable clarity so that no one willing to pay attention can claim they fail to see where the future is asking them to go. There are moments in life when holding on no longer feels like strength. It simply becomes resistance. That is exactly where this full moon begins its deepest work. It is delivering a message that refuses to be softened. The chapter behind you has already reached its conclusion, whether your mind has accepted it yet or not. The future cannot fully arrive while your hands remain wrapped around what no longer belongs to you. For many people, this realization will unfold gradually, but for 3 zodiac signs, it will arrive with such unmistakable force that pretending nothing has changed will no longer be possible. Aquarius, Leo, and Taurus stand directly at the heart of this unfolding story for a very specific reason. They are all fixed signs, and fixed energy possesses extraordinary endurance. It knows how to remain steady through storms that would push others off course. It carries remarkable loyalty, determination, and resilience. Yet that same unwavering nature often creates another pattern. It encourages staying committed long after a situation has stopped nourishing the soul. It convinces you that endurance is always noble, even when what you are protecting has quietly lost its purpose. This is not a flaw. It is simply how fixed energy expresses itself. Once it invests, it digs deep. Once it chooses, it stays. Once it builds, it fights to preserve. However, the combination of this Aquarius full moon with Pluto introduces a force that does not negotiate with attachment. It does not politely ask these signs whether they are ready to release the past. Instead, it creates circumstances where release becomes inevitable. Although that process may initially feel uncomfortable, the deeper truth is remarkably hopeful. Everything being removed is making space for something that is far more aligned with the person you are becoming than the life you have been trying so hard to preserve. Let us begin with Aquarius, because this transformation reaches directly into the core of your identity. If your sun, moon, or rising sign is Aquarius, this full moon illuminates your first house while joining Pluto, creating one of the most psychologically intense combinations astrology can produce. The first house governs your sense of self, your personal presence, and the way you move through the world. When Pluto joins a full moon here, it becomes almost impossible to continue wearing identities that no longer reflect who you truly are. Looking back over the past several years, you may recognize a pattern that has quietly shaped your life. You became the dependable one, the person who carried responsibilities for friends, communities, organizations, social circles, or larger collective goals. You learned how to stabilize the people around you. You became the bridge that kept relationships connected and systems functioning. Yet while giving so much attention to maintaining harmony outside yourself, an invisible boundary slowly disappeared. The difference between your own needs and everyone else's expectations became increasingly difficult to recognize. Without realizing it, you may have begun measuring your value through what you contributed rather than through who you actually were. This full moon interrupts that pattern with undeniable clarity. Pluto exposes every relationship, every community, and every group dynamic where your independence has quietly been exchanged for acceptance. It reveals the places where you minimized your authentic voice in order to remain compatible with the collective. It uncovers every situation where you continuously supported others while your own emotional needs remained unanswered. That discovery may initially feel unsettling, but it also creates the opening you have been searching for. The North Node has just entered Aquarius, placing your sign directly on the collective evolutionary path for the next 18 months. Symbolically, the universe is pointing toward you and declaring that your next chapter begins when you stop asking for permission to embody your own principles. Your leadership is no longer meant to depend upon unanimous agreement or universal approval. It is meant to emerge from authenticity itself. Fortunately, this transformation is balanced by remarkable support elsewhere in your chart. Across the sky, the Sun and Jupiter illuminate your seventh house of partnerships. Among relationship transits, this is one of the most encouraging combinations available. New connections entering your life now carry genuine potential because they are built upon mutual respect instead of dependency. The people who belong beside you are not asking you to abandon your individuality. They are honoring it. Saturn, your traditional ruling planet, strengthens these new foundations with stability and endurance, suggesting that what is beginning now possesses the capacity to last. Ultimately, your liberation is not simply about leaving isolation behind. It is about dissolving the old belief that intimacy requires sacrificing your own identity. Once that illusion falls away, your relationships become stronger precisely because you are finally bringing your complete self into them. Now let us turn toward Leo, because your journey unfolds through a very different kind of transformation, one that asks for both courage and honesty. If your sun, moon, or rising sign is Leo, you have probably already sensed that something inside you has been shifting ever since Jupiter entered your sign near the end of June. Astrologically, Jupiter promises expansion, confidence, opportunity, abundance, and a full year of personal growth. Those promises remain absolutely true. Yet Jupiter also magnifies whatever already exists beneath the surface. It does not distinguish between your greatest strengths and the parts of your identity that were constructed upon fragile foundations. Everything becomes larger. Everything becomes impossible to overlook. At exactly the same time, the South Node has entered Leo, introducing an equally significant lesson. During the next 18 months, you are being invited to examine how much of your confidence has depended upon external recognition. Perhaps you have unconsciously measured your worth through admiration, praise, popularity, or the feeling of being noticed whenever you entered a room. There is nothing inherently unhealthy about appreciating acknowledgement from others. Every human heart longs to feel appreciated. However, the South Node directs attention toward the unconscious patterns hidden beneath that desire. It asks whether your confidence survives when applause disappears. It asks whether you still recognize your own value when no one is affirming it. It asks whether performing for acceptance has slowly replaced simply existing as your authentic self. Somewhere along the journey, the approval itself may have become the destination, causing you to forget that your heart possesses immeasurable worth regardless of who is watching. This Aquarius full moon activates your seventh house of committed relationships and personal partnerships. With Pluto standing beside the moon, those relationships become powerful mirrors reflecting truths that can no longer remain hidden. Every interaction begins revealing where the need to control the emotional atmosphere, to occupy the center of attention, or to dominate the dynamic may have unintentionally created distance instead of intimacy. Pluto offers no comforting illusion. It reflects reality exactly as it is. Yet within that reflection lies the beginning of genuine rebirth. Because once these patterns become visible, they no longer possess the power to unconsciously direct your future. And that realization prepares the ground for everything that follows. To be clear, none of this suggests that every Leo struggles with an inflated sense of self. That is far too simple, and it completely misses the deeper invitation of this transit. What these planetary movements are truly asking is something much more honest. They are encouraging every Leo to look beneath the surface and question the foundation upon which their identity has been built. Which parts of your confidence were born from your own heart, and which parts quietly developed because you believed someone else needed to approve of who you were. There is a profound difference between expressing yourself because it feels natural and expressing yourself because you fear disappearing without an audience. That distinction is becoming impossible to ignore now. The remarkable truth is that releasing the constant need for recognition does not weaken your brilliance. Quite the opposite. It refines it. Your natural creativity becomes more focused, more sincere, and far more enduring, because it is no longer fueled by the pursuit of validation. Instead, it begins drawing strength from purpose. During the next 12 months, with Jupiter continuing its journey through your sign, extraordinary opportunities exist to build professional success, expand artistic ambitions, and create a lasting legacy. Those possibilities become exponentially stronger when they emerge from authenticity instead of the endless pursuit of applause. The version of yourself that is now beginning to emerge no longer waits for permission to occupy space. It no longer depends upon outside voices to confirm its value. Rather than losing your identity, you are uncovering the one that existed before approval became part of the equation. That discovery may ultimately become the greatest gift this entire cycle offers to Leo. Now let us shift our attention toward Taurus, because the transformation unfolding for you reaches one of the most visible areas of your life. If your sun, moon, or rising sign is Taurus, this Aquarius full moon activates the axis connecting your private foundation with your public achievements, placing extraordinary emphasis on the relationship between home and career. Chances are you have already sensed that professional changes have been quietly building beneath the surface for quite some time. Earlier this month, Mars formed its conjunction with Uranus while moving through your financial sector. That alignment likely introduced unexpected developments surrounding income, resources, financial stability, or even your emotional connection to comfort and security. For someone whose nature instinctively values consistency and dependable foundations, disruptions in these areas rarely feel like ordinary inconveniences. They reach much deeper. They challenge the very structure upon which your sense of safety has been built. Yet this earlier disruption was only preparing the stage for what arrives now. The Aquarius full moon joins Pluto at the highest point of your chart, occupying your 10th house of career, public standing, reputation, long-term accomplishment, and legacy. The image that keeps presenting itself is one of tremendous stored energy, finally reaching its release point. Something that has been developing quietly within your professional world, whether it involves a project, a leadership position, long-awaited recognition, or even a complete transformation in career direction is approaching its defining moment. The quality surrounding this breakthrough feels unmistakably sudden. Uranus, which rules this area of your chart, forms a perfect trine with both Pluto and the full moon, creating conditions where change arrives unexpectedly, yet ultimately works in your favor. What initially appears surprising may ultimately become the very opportunity you have been unconsciously preparing to receive. At the same time, another message deserves equal attention. The South Node has entered Leo within your fourth house, bringing focus toward your attachment to familiarity. It highlights the comfort of routines that have become predictable, environments that feel emotionally safe, and patterns that once provided stability but now quietly limit your potential. The symbolism is remarkably direct. The instinct to remain inside what feels comfortable has gradually become the very force preventing your professional evolution. Deep inside, you may already recognize this truth. Perhaps there have been roles that no longer inspire you, responsibilities that have stopped encouraging growth, or situations that continue simply because they feel familiar. Remaining there was never a reflection of laziness or lack of ambition. It reflects the essential nature of Taurus. You protect what you build, you remain loyal, you endure. Yet Pluto measures progress through transformation rather than comfort. It asks whether security is serving your future or quietly imprisoning it. The greatest opportunity available now comes through trusting the disruption instead of resisting it. It arrives through accepting the invitation before absolute certainty appears. Waiting until every possible risk has disappeared may sound reasonable, but under this transit, it could also mean delaying the very breakthrough your chart is preparing to deliver. The professional advancement, public recognition, or complete reinvention now becoming available requires a willingness to step beyond familiar boundaries. Ironically, the lasting stability you have always sought is not located inside the old structure you have been protecting. It exists on the other side of the courageous decision you have been postponing. That is the leap this full moon encourages you to make. Even if Aquarius, Leo, or Taurus are not among your primary placements, this celestial event is still shaping your experience because every birth chart receives its own activation. No one remains untouched by this lunation. Every sign encounters a different doorway into the same larger transformation. If you are an Aries, the full moon illuminates your 11th house, encouraging you to release connections with groups, organizations, or social networks that limit your individuality, while opening opportunities to assume leadership within communities that genuinely reflect your vision and values. If you are a Gemini, attention turns toward your 9th house, expanding your perspective beyond familiar limitations. A significant opportunity connected with publishing, education, media, or travel stands ready to move forward. Your greatest task is learning how to direct your remarkable mental energy wisely so enthusiasm does not become exhaustion. If you are a Cancer, this lunation activates your 8th house, bringing shared finances, obligations, debts, and emotional dependence into sharp focus. Something within these areas approaches a decisive turning point, while Jupiter moving through your 2nd house simultaneously points toward the emergence of a meaningful new source of personal income that belongs entirely to you and strengthens your own financial independence. Preparing the foundation for what comes next. If your sun, moon, or rising falls in Virgo, this Aquarius full moon directs its transformative energy into your 6th house, the area connected with everyday routines, physical well-being work patterns, and the habits that quietly shape your entire life. Pluto is not encouraging small improvements here. It is calling for a complete reconstruction. The endless cycle of giving more than you receive, constantly proving your value through productivity while your own needs remain overlooked, has reached its limit. This is the moment when your relationship with time, health, and personal energy begins to change. You are no longer meant to define your worth by how much you sacrifice. Instead, This period asks you to build a life where your energy is protected rather than endlessly depleted, because that shift becomes the foundation for everything you accomplish next. If you are a Libra, the full moon illuminates your fifth house, bringing creativity, romance, passion, and authentic self-expression into unmistakable focus. Pluto has a remarkable ability to reveal what appearances have been hiding. If a romantic connection has relied more on pleasing others than expressing your genuine desires, or if charm has been masking deeper truths, those patterns are unlikely to remain hidden much longer. Yet this same transit carries extraordinary promise. By choosing honesty over performance and remaining faithful to what your own heart truly wants, you open the door to one of the richest periods of creative inspiration your chart has experienced in a very long time. The courage to create from authenticity instead of expectation becomes the key that unlocks your greatest potential. For Scorpio, this transformation reaches especially deep because Pluto has always spoken your language more directly than it does for most signs. This full moon activates your fourth house, the realm of home, family, emotional roots, and inherited patterns that often stretch back through generations. Something that has existed beneath the surface for many years is now rising into conscious awareness for what feels like a final release. That process may stir powerful emotions because it touches the deepest layers of your personal history. Even so, every difficult realization serves a meaningful purpose. The emotional foundation you are constructing within yourself now will support every important chapter that follows. What feels like an ending is quietly becoming the strongest beginning you could build. If you are a Sagittarius, attention shifts toward your third house of communication, ideas, learning, and local connections. Your words are carrying unusual influence during this period. Conversations, written work, public messages, or creative ideas shared now possess the ability to travel much farther than you originally imagined. Your voice is developing greater authority, and something you choose to express during this cycle could shape opportunities well beyond your immediate expectations. Speak thoughtfully, because your message may reach exactly the people who need to hear it. Capricorn, your experience centers upon the second house, the area governing money, values, financial stability, and your personal sense of worth. Pluto is transforming your understanding of security at its very core. Long-held beliefs, suggesting that your value depends entirely upon relentless effort and constant work, are beginning to dissolve. In their place, a healthier relationship with abundance starts to emerge. At the same time, unexpected developments involving an investment, an inheritance, or a shared financial opportunity could dramatically alter your economic landscape. The greatest transformation, however, happens internally as you begin recognizing that your worth has never been measured solely by how tirelessly you produce. Finally, if you are a Pisces, this full moon enters your 12th house, one of the most private and spiritually significant areas of the chart. This is a deeply introspective period devoted to release, healing, rest, and inner renewal. Hidden emotional patterns, unconscious habits, and long-buried influences that have quietly shaped your choices are gradually being brought into the light. Rather than resisting this process, allow those outdated patterns to leave. They have completed their purpose. By surrendering what no longer belongs in your life, you prepare yourself for an entirely new cycle that cannot fully begin until this inner clearing has taken place. Every ending unfolding now exists to create space for something far more aligned with your future. As we reach the close of this extraordinary full moon, there is one truth that deserves to remain with you above everything else. Although this week may feel emotionally overwhelming, although the intensity has been impossible for many people to ignore, this astrology is not centered upon destruction for its own sake. It may appear disruptive on the surface, yet beneath that disruption lies remarkable support. The rare barboat basket configuration, together with the harmonious trines and sextiles connecting the outer planets, forms a powerful structure of stability beneath the visible changes. These planetary relationships suggest that while outdated systems are indeed coming apart, the foundations for entirely new structures are already waiting to be built. This is not change without direction. The design already exists. The resources already exist. The cosmic architecture surrounding this moment is inviting humanity to stop shaping life around approval, comfort, and conformity, and instead begin creating something that reflects genuine truth. Ultimately, that is the question standing before every one of us today. Can you release the version of yourself that was designed to satisfy expectations, remain safe, or fit comfortably inside someone else's definition of success, and choose the life that genuinely belongs to you? That is the opportunity this full moon presents. It is not simply upheaval, it is an opening. If recent days have brought restless nights, unexpected emotional breakthroughs, forgotten memories returning to the surface, or relationships shifting in ways you did not anticipate, remember that these experiences do not necessarily mean your life is falling apart. Something much more meaningful may be taking place. You are being reorganized from the inside out. There is an enormous difference between collapse and transformation, and you are far from alone in experiencing it. Before we finish, I want to sincerely thank you for staying with me throughout this entire journey. Your time and attention truly mean more than you know. If this message spoke to you and you would like to explore more conversations like this in the future, I would genuinely appreciate your support by subscribing to the channel. I would also love to hear from you in the comments. Share your zodiac sign and tell me what this week has been bringing into your life. I take the time to read every comment because I believe many of us are moving through this remarkable period together. And there is something deeply meaningful about realizing that none of us is walking this path alone. Be gentle with yourself. Keep listening to your intuition, and I look forward to sharing the next journey with you very soon.